listening to the Esq.Marketing podcast, hosted by Matthew Lauren, president of Esq.Marketing, where he features successful solo and SMB law firms from all over the United States. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey, I'm Matthew Lauren, president of Esq.Marketing, and you're listening to the Esq.Marketing podcast, where I feature successful attorneys from all over the United States. This episode is brought to you by Esq.Marketing. We help law firms generate more clients and cases using digital marketing. And speaking of successful lawyers, today I have the pleasure of speaking with Phil Andonian, co-founder of Caleb Andonian, PLLC. Phil's practice is dedicated to representing individuals in criminal defense, employment, and personal injury matters. Prior to co-founding Caleb Andonian, Phil was of counsel at one of the country's leading labor and employment firms located in D.C., where he represented local and international unions in all manners of litigation at the local, state, and federal levels. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me, Matt. Great.
Yeah, no problem. Let's jump right in. I usually ask this question of a lot of my guests because our audience is, solo law firms and small law firms, and business advice, marketing advice is always helpful, and also just the driver behind why you started your firm. So why did you decide to go off on your own?
Well, I think I decided 2020 wasn't tumultuous enough, so we wanted to just add losing a stable income and benefits. Why not? It's something I've been thinking about for a long time, and I've always been really lucky to be working in places, in offices that I love, with people that I love, including the firm that I left to start my current firm. But I think I've always, sometimes deep down and sometimes not so deep down, just really, really kind of needed independence and the ability to kind of not just make my own decisions about cases and make my own decisions about kind of management of my day-to-day and my practice, but I think I just function better. I think better. I work better. I'm kind of I know I'm driving myself. No real safety net to just assume is going to catch me. So, I do think there was probably something about, the pandemic experience and just kind of being locked down and, kind of a
interesting
confrontation with mortality one way or another that, I think it felt like the right time. And, my wife is really, really supportive, and, I think she could see it brewing and, kind of push me over. Excuse me. So that, here we are.
Nice. Yeah, I noticed you're a public defender for a number of years. And so back during that time, was it always the plan sort of to evolve and go off on your own eventually after you kind of got some experience under your belt?
I think it was not necessarily something I had thought explicitly about back then, because it's been a while. But I definitely think that experience is a lot of what molded, or formed my kind of legal personality that led to this. Because, we were really kind of autonomous, even in an office. And I think there was a lot of value put on kind of taking initiative and being creative. And, we all had our own cases, even though it was collaborative and we would have supervision. At the end of the day, we're the ones that are in court trying them. So I think got a taste for that kind of freedom that, I'm hoping, hopefully this venture kind of produces more of. And certainly, the skills that I learned there are what I feel kind of comfortable with in terms of a foundation to do this on my own. So it was definitely a big part of it.
I hear that a lot from attorneys about the business aspect, and then the practice of law. And so they don't really teach you a lot about the business aspect of things in law school. What were some resources that you found helpful for learning about that?
Yeah, no, I keep joking with my partner. I can't wait to actually start practicing law as a small firm lawyer. I think so far we've spent approximately 7,000 hours on business and startup stuff.
After invoicing and employment stuff and building websites, you'll start practicing.
Yeah, right, exactly. Then it's 3 a.m. There are a lot of really, really great resources. I know Lawyerist is the site that I went to a lot. That's actually how I found out about you guys, because they were very kind of like one of their highly recommended or whatever it is. So
Okay, yeah.
so it was great. And, they had a bunch of other really good primers on, just billing and, firm setup and all that. And then, it was that and talking to a lot of people and just kind of like worrying out loud about all the different things and kind of figuring out the way others have dealt with it. But honestly, much of it has just been we dove in and we're doing it now. And half of what I thought I was all planned for has completely gone out the window. And there's, the rest of it is stuff I hadn't even thought about. So,
Yeah. You raise a good point. Just kind of getting in there and doing it. I know any business, I've been involved in other businesses too. And, but yeah, sometimes you just can't figure it out until you're actually doing it and feel the pain of making a mistake or encountering some challenge that you have to overcome.
Totally. Right. That's exactly right.
So if you had to go back to the beginning of when you started practicing law, what's one past failure or mistake that you experienced that kind of led you to future success?
Oh my God. I mean, if I had to pick a failure. No, I guess I would, I think it's not so much one failure so much as it is just maybe a mindset that I would have had that was different. I think I tended to be very, what was in front of me, kind of like, I was a public defender. I was just, everything was trial law and everything was stand up on our feet, lawyering. And so I really kind of threw myself into that. And I, really kind of turned, my nose down at writing and just anything that wasn't like real kind of combat trial lawyering in the courtroom. And then in the last 10 years, I've been in a firm that, it's in the civil world, it's just a very different life. And, you're not in the courtroom a lot. So it's very writing intensive and very research intensive. And, I definitely struggled a lot with that because it was like a complete shift in attitude about what the law was and how I could function as a practitioner. And I feel grateful for my former colleagues who really, really kind of helped me grow in that regard a lot through a lot of patience and kind of advice. But, I definitely think that transition could have been made a lot easier if I had just kind of like looked at the bigger picture earlier on and understood better or had more of an appreciation for how it's all kind of part of it, even if I'm working on specific skills. So thankfully I did go to this firm and I now feel like I'm a pretty well-rounded lawyer, but it did not come easily.
That's good. That's good advice. I mean, it's hard to look out past your own surroundings and kind of forecast for the future of what you want to do. I noticed on your profile that you're a faculty member at Harvard. Yeah. And you still teach there?
Yeah, I do. It's a yearly. I mean, this year got interrupted because of COVID, but it's an annual workshop that they put on. It's a precursor to one of their clinics. And so we go up every year and we, there's a bunch of us and, kind of like go through mock trial foundations and, evidence foundation.
Very cool. So in speaking with the students there, do you ever have a chance to sort of prime them or prepare them for what it might be like to run their own law firms later, or if they're like sort of thinking about that?
I have not since, if we're up and running again in the fall, which open question, if that happens, this will be the first year that I will be there as
owning your own firm,
or actually, having really seriously contemplated the plunge. And I would imagine I'll have a lot to say about it. I mean, I do a lot of other trainings, and I did one recently, and a couple people have reached out to ask specifically about my, how the transition to my own practice has been. So it seems like something that,
you'll learn some valuable insights.
Yeah, and I was telling one of them, this is a great time because I'm like completely, overwhelmed with everything, and it's probably a much better window into what the experience is like than like 5 years from now, when hopefully I'm looking back and laughing at how,
like, oh my God, why did I do that? I was always curious, like during law school, even for yourself, like, is that usually an ambition of law students to eventually own their own firm, or are people scared of doing that, or?
Yeah, it was not something that I felt was really an idea that was pushed in my law school, and I would feel pretty comfortable guessing it's probably the case everywhere, and maybe even more so, that it's not a kind of prevailing idea at the really big top tier law schools. I mean, like Harvard, for
Yeah.
example. I mean, the caliber of students there, it's like, everybody's either going to an AmLaw 100 firm, running for office, working for an administration. It's like,
Sure, yeah.
so it's not, and I think you hit on the really good point that even if it were something that were kind of openly talked about, there for sure was not one bit of any kind of practical kind of business side, operation side training or anything that was apparent to me. And so I don't even know how, if one were thinking about it, they would do it without really kind of doing a lot of work on their own
Sure.
to figure it out. And so it would be nice if that were the case, because I feel like there's a lot of people like me who feel like maybe they're better not necessarily having to work for others. And
Yeah. And you point out a good point earlier about the resources like Lawyerist or other online resources or other attorneys even that have done it. Network with those people to try to figure out what you need to do to be successful. Rituals for success. I always like to ask this of our guests. What's something you do on a routine basis, whether it's daily or weekly, to help you kind of focus on your long-term goals?
You mean like like any like personal?
Personal, professional, something that keeps you centered and focused.
Well, I mean, a big part of my life was, kind of daily going to the gym and kind of really working out hard for a couple of hours. And that's actually been a real loss with the pandemic, because I am not somebody that easily self-motivates unless I have to get up, go to a gym.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. And there's equipment I can use. So that actually kind of really took a big chunk of my focus out of it. But, I still try to do that. I actually recently, again, to say my wife is the most supportive person on earth, not only sponsoring this move, but, a few months ago got a motorcycle for the first time.
Nice.
In my life, a Harley no less. And so it's been really kind of nice just going out on long rides and just and that's been oddly meditative. And so in a way that's starting to reclaim some of the kind of mind clearing the gym used to do for me. So hopefully that'll tide me over until
That's great. Yeah. And that's good, advice for anyone, is just find something that you can detach with. It's something that lets you get away.
Yeah. I mean, it really, that breather is just so important, because I, at least for me, I'm not somebody who can just go nonstop with no kind of downtime and still function well. So, yeah.
I don't know anybody that is.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in the thick of it right now, starting your own firm. So your advice on this would probably be the best. What's something you would tell an attorney thinking of getting into your position? Maybe they're at a firm, they're getting a solid paycheck and benefits, and what would you? What kind of advice would you give them if they're thinking about going off on their own?
I guess the big kind of top line, lessons or ideas, I guess, that are becoming, evident, and I think they were obvious to me to begin with, but the business side, or the operations side, which I'm including, like business development and kind of like network building, really, you can't overstate how much time that takes and how much you really have to want to be doing that, and how, I think it's probably totally possible to start a law firm if you really would rather not. But I'm definitely finding that, the way that we're growing in the ways that we, consistent with how we want to, or because my partner and I are really kind of like taking the entrepreneurial part of it seriously. But it's a lot of work. And, I guess the other thing is to really, again, self-evident to me, but, you never know what relationship you've made or what contact you've made is going to end up being important or useful or helpful. And so, I definitely for not because I thought I was going to start a firm. I think more so because it's in my nature. I just tend to get along with people, and I try not to be a jerk unless I have to. And as a result, I'd like to think that I have a network of people and acquaintances and colleagues that think something of me that's not bad. And I'm definitely seeing a lot of and again, it's not like using my contacts, but just the support and just kind of having a lot of people, just kind of pop up, when I'm least expecting it and have something helpful to say or have a referral or whatever it might be. So, really just being mindful of how easy it is to, really hurt yourself if you alienate yourself, and how, overall nice it is to just have a community around you.
Yeah. Networking is so important with finding a job, starting a business. You never really realize how crucial it is.
Yeah, especially like in the early stages of a startup. I mean, that's going to be a lot of like the referral network is kind of a lot of the, kind of seed client money that you need before you establish yourself and, are coming down.
Yeah, some of the other firms I talk to, even if they've been, at it for several years, referrals are still a huge part of the business that they're generating.
Right.
So for Caleb Andonian PLLC, where do you guys see yourself in the next 5 years? I've never really talked to someone like at this stage of starting a firm, and so it's interesting to hear what your projections are.
Yeah, you're getting all the 4 weeks. We're 4 weeks in or 5 weeks in, so this is truly is the ground floor. I mean, our goal, I think, is on some level we want to grow, especially growing with increase in work. I mean, I think we want to be busy and be able to be increasingly busy, which will then, naturally need, more staffing.
Sure, yeah.
To a point where we've got, a good amount of work. We have good, a couple of, good associates that we're working with, and, staff, paralegals. I don't know that we necessarily see ourselves as wanting to manage, a mid-sized law firm, although I don't know. So, a small, but formidable shop, I think, is kind of what we're looking to do,
Gotcha. Yeah. Mark my words. Caleb Andonian PLLC is going to be formidable in the next 5 years.
Right. Or will be a cautionary tale for leaving with benefits during a pandemic.
You can show this podcast to students in your law class.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Oh, man, cool. All right, you've been listening to Phil Andonian, co-founder of Caleb Andonian PLLC. Phil, where can people go to learn more about your firm?
Great, thanks, Matt. Yeah, our website is www.calebandonian.com. CalebAndonian.com.
Nice. Thanks for being on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me, Matt. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for listening to the Esq.Marketing podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.